Welcome to the RPGamer review of Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass. This is read by Spermbreast, written by Nix, and the video is edited by Airfrog. Casey Ozimi. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass is one of the strangest RPGs I have ever had the pleasure of playing. It wears its influence, such as the SNES classic Earthbound, on its sleeve, sending players into a 8-year-old boy's dream world, which in fact is a sinister nightmare. While the game is chock full of humor and strange sentient objects to fight, Jimmy's narrative and his world are among the most uncomfortable I've encountered in a video game in a long time. It mixes elements of horror and a coming-of-age story, crafting an uneasy experience where something always feels off, and it's up to the player to find out what could even be. Electric Airship and Starseed have ported Jimmy Crazy Adventure to PlayStation 5, and while it's not a perfect port, it's definitely an experience for any RP gamers who love colorful worlds that are cute on the outside with creepy overtones. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass is a game that starts with humble beginnings, is about a boy, his older brother, and a request from their mother to get some honey. The moment Jimmy leaves his house, players are whisked into a colorful dream world where nothing is at its seam. There are talking frogs, gangsters trying to sell you on their lifestyle, and even an 8-bit kingdom in need of saving. When Jimmy and his brother Buck arrive at the hive to collect the honey, they are greeted by Deadbeat and a sinister entity that want to play. Jimmy joins forces with his family to explore the dream world, save everyone in it, and come face to face with the dreaded Pulsating Mass, who may be more than they seem. There's something uncomfortable about taking on the role of an 8-year-old boy and entering his dream world. Visually, Jimmy's dream world is vibrant and colorful, but everything feels off in a way that is hard to describe. It's a game where revealing too much of the plot takes away from the entire experience, because it's non-stop surprise and how the story unfolds. There is a darkness in Jimmy Tale that is so shocking that one wonders if the game needed to go as hard as it does. There are constant horrors, a surprising amount of gore, and a lot of story beats that make it hard to predict the game direction. Although the game is quite linear, there is always something or someone lurking around every corner of Jimmy World, and none of it is good. Since the game takes place in Jimmy Dream World, imagination is a core theme throughout. All of the characters Jimmy encounters throughout the narrative are often kind but strange, with a lot of them knowing him and reminding him of that he is just a good boy. Casey Ozimi's writing is excellent. It amplifies the absurdity of Jimmy's encounters and make everyone feel like a caricature rather than a character. Even Jimmy's own family feel just slightly off enough to make the player question their sanity, as Jimmy's mother, Helga, border on toxic positivity, and his uncle Lord behave like a literal lump until his story unfolds. The writing invites the player to participate in Jimmy's subconsciousness, so they feel as if they too may be going insane. The world is both sinister and full of childlike wonder, so the juxtaposition can feel almost jarring. But that is what makes Jimmy's world and his story so compelling. Imagination and absurdity is also a large part of the game combat and exploration systems. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass use a traditional turn-based combat system, with Jimmy's characters sporting a unique twist, the ability to imagine himself as something else. Jimmy can transform into a scary bear, a lumpy slime, a weird 50s vampire, and even a happy-go-lucky flower. Throughout the story, Jimmy will encounter different objects that he can then imagine himself as, and each form has unique skill both and out of combat. Unfortunately, combat is a slow experience, as enemies feel far more overpowered than Jimmy and his family can often handle, and some of the Jimmy family members' abilities are a mixed bag. In particular, Uncle Lord, whose abilities require him to lump on the spot and mainly be a punching bag for the enemy. The same goes for Helga, who played the role of healer fantastically but can't do much else. While players can equip manuals into every character to give them additional skill, it's frustrating that each character's base skill never quite feel enough, with combat never having enough oomph to be interesting. Jimmy is also an incredibly grindy experience, which takes away from the more powerful narrative moment in the game. That being said, there are kernels of great ideas here. Jimmy starts fairly weak at the beginning of the game, but as he acquires imagination form, each can be leveled up to provide Jimmy with some additional active skill and passive ones. As Jimmy level up each form, he can mix and match skill from each so that certain skill can be used in any form. For example, the Pumpkin Ghost has a handy mana drain skill that can beef up Jimmy's spell casting, and once unlocked can be placed in an active slot marked by a star that can be used by any form during combat. As the form level up, they also provide passive abilities that, in a starred slot, can be used by any form through this mark with a bullet point can only be used at in Jimmy natural state. While Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass is a grindy game, grinding is encouraged to gain all the new skill that each form has to offer. Some forms are more dynamic than others, and with the right setup, Jimmy can become far more powerful than any of his allies. Thankfully, exploration fares a bit better in combat, as Jimmy can use his different imagination form to solve puzzles in a dungeon or locate hidden areas. Exploring and trying different forms and different scenarios is quite engaging. True, the game isn't great about providing hint to the player on what they may need to do to solve a puzzle. Most puzzles tend to be straightforward, and it's usually easy to figure out which form one needs. Others can feel frustrating, on top of the player trying to wade through the high encounter rate in the game. However, there are times when exploration can be a real threat, particularly when in the low-level goon form, which let Jimmy push people around to get some fabulous bit of dialogue from the NPCs. There's so much to uncover in the games, and finding random mirrors can allow Jimmy's vampire form to go through them and be in the mirrorverse, potentially reading people not so secret diaries. There's a large plethora of side content that players can enjoy once they get access to the spaceship, though many of the special dungeons require Jimmy and his family at higher levels because they are quite the challenge. There are also hilarious and difficult special bosses that can be uncovered, so while puzzle solving isn't always the most fun, being able to go into some of these hidden areas offer excellent opportunities for better gear, grinding, and seeing some of the game's funniest NPCs and crazier situations. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass isn't without a few blemishes, as the PlayStation 5 version has a few instances of crashing during play. It was also difficult to know what mode the player was on if they choose to switch difficulties at any point. Through a difficulty indicator was patched and during the review process, the game is quite difficult at times, though never impossible, with some boss fights feeling like the player is banging their head against a wall, which also definitely adds to the game runtime. Although the main story can be completed in around 20 hours, doing the side content and grinding can easily bump that number higher. In terms of score, Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass has a lot of pleasant and idyllic tune that illustrate the themes of imagination and childlike wonder as well. That said, most of the music isn't particularly memorable. Similarly, the game's visuals are also enjoyable, being colorful, simplistic, and doing a great job of showcasing the game's absurd world. Characters are cute and round looking, though everyone has the same vacant look in their eyes that remind the player that there's something darker in this world. Environments are quite linear, but each revolve around theme or concept that gives the location a lot of personality even with RPG Maker's limitations. While Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass has its share of problems, I cannot deny how intrigued I was by the game character's story and world. Casey Ozimi has crafted such an intriguing and yet sinister world that makes you want to follow the game's mysteries to the very end. While the combat is serviceable and the puzzles are possible, these are not the elements that will attract players to pick up the game. Rather, it is the absurdity, humor, and sharp writing that will keep them exploring. While the PlayStation 5 port has a few crashes, Starseed has done a decent job of porting the game to modern consoles. While Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass is an imaginative experience filled with nightmares, its combat and grindiness hold it back from being truly exceptional experience. RPGamer give Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass 3 out of 5. For more detail, hit up the link in the description below. For more video content, subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Twitch for daily stream of your favorite RPGs. Join on the discussion at rpgamer.com on Discord. And for the latest in RPG news, head over to rpgamer.com.